doing this for a long time now. We're going to teach people about the world they lost.
Welcome to the Broken Instruments podcast. I have to be honest, starting this podcast was something I was very hesitant to do. Growing up, I was never that type of person to be eager to speak in front of people, which is ironic how I ended up here and where I ended up as far as a career. So I think it's only fitting to kind of talk about what Broken Instruments is. And a little background on me. Growing up as just a simple kid, I picked up music as just as an activity. I was at my grandma's house one day, and I think she saw me playing her piano. She had this big grand piano in the formal dining room. So I just would hit some keys here and there, and she noticed that I found interest in it, and my parents noticed that I found interest in it. So she connected me with one of my with a music instructor who was a very close family friend, and he actually became a mentor to me in my new career path. So starting from there, like I played piano. I initially thought I was going to learn to play the guitar first, but that wasn't the case. I picked up the piano. I also picked up the drums, and from there, I remember getting my first laptop and being super drawn to the music production application. And from there, I kind of just launched into this hobby of music production and making mixes and remixes for our church, for our dance team when we were young. And it became a passion of mine to kind of develop this skill and to have this avenue to explore creativity and different ideas and experiment with sounds. And like anything else that I came across in life, I always found a way to reflect on what I'm doing and what it meant to me as a person. I feel like everything we do relates. Everything that we do relates to life experience, and dreams and lessons that we get from God or whatever you believe in, whoever you believe in. So that became a very, very deep-rooted way that I looked at the world. So music for me was always a symbol of life, right? And they kind of say, there's a saying out there that says, like, you know, music's like the universal language of love. And it's a way that people express themselves. So because I was so drawn to that, I was, you know, I always look at the philosophical side of things and why things are what they are, and why people call things what they are. And from there, I kind of linked life with music, right? And I mean, starting this whole thing, I ended up opening up a bunch of my old projects, old write-ups about this, and I came across this document, and this is back in 2011, and it's titled "The Philosophy of the Broken Instruments." So this is a project that's been in the works for a long time, and I feel like it's ending up being something that I really can't get away from. So just a little background of what why I started this and what it means to me. I always equated an artist as a creator, right? A skillful creator who was gifted an art of expression, right? So any type of art we're talking here, like music, film, painting, sculpting, you know, these artists have this freedom of expression. You know, they operate in creativity rather than logic. So I was drawn to that, and we know so many artists nowadays, and you know, especially now in this in 2020, we have so many artists that are on the big scene or even spreading their message easily through social media. So I was always interested in that. And for me, the artist's greatest tool is what we would call an instrument, right? So a painter would have a paintbrush and a canvas and paint, right? A musician, obviously, there's a wide variety of different instruments that we could use for music. And growing up in my church, we always labeled, individuals as instruments of God. Not in a sense that, God just uses us to do something, but more so we are a vessel or a channel that God can make his messages known. Now, with that, I know there was this element that I always felt that I was never really worthy to be called an instrument because it was never really about me. So when I was thinking about that, and people say that God moves people around the world, and things move around you, like the universe moves things around you to make things happen, and things don't happen by coincidence. That things are destined to come across, and fate brings things together and people together. If we're all instruments, I definitely labeled myself as an instrument that wasn't perfect, an instrument that was flawed, maybe even broken, right? So when I finally came to that understanding about my life that I'm not perfect, that's when I started bridging being broken and being an instrument, which is why I named it Broken Instruments, right? Now, being a musician, and if you are a musician or if you are an artist in any form, it's important to note, like, your instrument, your tool is one of your prized possessions. And I looked at my instruments as my avenues, my vessels, right? So there was a time where my keyboard broke, and it was like one key. Literally, it was like the G. It was like the G2, I believe, that was broken. So every time I tried to play a song, that was always the note that was missing, and it was frustrating, right? But for some reason, I couldn't muster up the courage and the acceptance to throw it away. And that kind of became a philosophy of broken instruments. When you have a musician that values the message and the music more than anything, and there's a lot of sentimental value, there ends up being a lot of sentimental value with the instruments that he or she uses. So I had that dialogue with myself. I questioned myself, like, why can't I just throw this keyboard away and buy a new one? I looked at that keyboard as something that I grew up with. I looked at it as something that I produced so many good things with, and not a product that I was able to send out and make known to people. All the music that I produced was mostly for me. And I looked at that keyboard. Yeah, it was broken, but I couldn't decide. I couldn't accept the fact that that I could let it go. And I thought about that for a long time, and from there, I understood something. I understood that regardless of the condition of an instrument, an artist and a musician could still make something with that instrument. And if I'm correlating like an artist and a musician to like the ultimate musician and creator of this world, I would say that the musician that I'm referring to is like the maestro, is the master, and it's God. And I always looked at us as his instruments, as broken as we are. He does value us that much, where he really can't throw us away. No matter how broken or beat up we are, a musician never throws away a broken instrument. Even a broken instrument can still make noise. And honestly, the way I'm flawed is not the same way you're flawed. So it became this idea that, we're all learning life, and we're all navigating this life. We're all playing these songs that, God wants the world to hear. As imperfect as we are, he still allows us to be his vessel, to be his instrument. And that's how Broken Instruments started. It was starting from music, but now it's starting to bridge the gap between all the things, all the avenues I've taken in life. So when I accepted that I was not going to be a musician or like a music producer in the industry or anything, when I finally accepted that, I out of recommendation and suggestion, I took a path to nursing. All right, so I became a nurse in 2012, and to be honest with you, it wasn't something I wanted from the beginning. It wasn't something I had a passion for to start off with. I was recommended. Being in the medical field, it's recommended because it's a very stable job, and there are always people to take care of, and it was more of stability. And being in the program, and if you've been through a nursing program, you know how tough it could be. You know what you have to go through, and what things you need to learn. And from there, I tried to relate that to how I picked up music, or how I look at my purpose in life. And working in the field as a nurse, you work alongside some amazing people, and you do work alongside some not so amazing people. And I think there was a moment when I was in a clinical as a student, and I found a purpose here, and I found a passion in nursing. So I realized that no matter what, no matter if I feel good or feel bad, I affected people with my presence and with my energy. So if we're going to affect and impact people regardless of good energy or bad energy, I would prefer to bring good energy, right? So working on the floor, being a nurse, precepting some new students, or training new hires, I found an interest in teaching. So I started dabbling in teaching part-time at first, and I learned that I loved it. So I went to teach full-time. I got my master's in nursing education, and I'm currently an educator in a few different schools here in Southern California, in their nursing programs. So one big specialty that I do hold dear to my heart is mental health. I started realizing and seeing more what the world might be missing. And I worked with patients who have been beaten, by the world to the inability to function. And that's rough to see somebody who, on paper can be very successful. They have financial stability. They have maybe even a complete family, but still have the inability to perform or function for them, for a bigger purpose in life. And those are my clients, not only in mental health specifically, but in chemical dependency, substance abuse, addiction. Those are the clients that I worked with. And from there, what I saw was these are normal people who are just going through something that they didn't know much about, something that they couldn't cope with. And they just needed someone to help them through. And that's what I always looked at nursing as. I looked at nurses as, the crutch for someone who might be missing a limb, or in mental health, a perspective that they can't seem to find. And the conversations I had with clients really shaped who I am and how I look at the world now and how I work with people now. So we're all broken. We're all broken, including me. And at this point, it's how can we continue to live in this world and still serve a greater purpose despite our imperfections. Our imperfections make us unique. They don't define us. Two broken instruments, they might be fractured in a certain spot. So if I have a fretboard on a guitar and there's a fracture, on a specific section, if I fractured even another guitar and I try to replicate that break or that fracture, it's still not the same. Now we can relate, but it still won't produce the same sound. So if I look at humans as instruments and I can kind of, use it as a symbol for like music, if we're still here on this earth, I feel like we're still responsible to be instruments of God. I feel like we're still responsible to make music. And I mean, the music we're supposed to make is our life story, our life purpose. And God still uses you and still needs you to spread a message. And that's what Broken Instruments is. I always find myself coming back to the philosophy of Broken Instruments, and I relate everything to that because we're all human and we're all imperfect and we're all, hurting or broken by the world, but we could still fulfill a purpose in life. And that's why I decided to make this platform where I definitely want to host people and talk about life stories, things that help people get through, can definitely help others find a way to get through their problems. Now, we're likely not all going through the same thing, but I've learned so much from even my patients. I've seen and met God through my patients, and like learning from them, made me appreciate my life more. And that's the beautiful thing, is that we're still here to learn. So Broken Instruments, the podcast, is going to be hosting a variety of people that are special to me, people that I feel like we can all learn from. And we're just going to have conversations about life, about breaks and the breaking points, breakdowns, breakthroughs, basically how real life started. And I think real life starts with some pain and suffering. You talk to anybody, there's always something. There's always something that's bothering them. There's always something that launched them into a path of searching for God. A path of seeking almighty strength and higher power. Me personally, I've been through a few things in the past couple years that I've learned so much from, and it's not just the good things, right? It's highlighting the difficult times. It's going back to the times that you felt injustice, that you felt betrayed, and those are the moments that I believe God exists even more, and he glorifies himself even more through those hard times. And those hard times really create strength and understanding. So if there's anything that I hope this podcast brings to the world and to you, if you're listening to this, I want all of us to find our purpose, because we're still here for a reason. And I mean, that reason's very deep. It's deeply rooted into who you are as a person. What your driving force is, what you believe in, and the mission, purpose that you have in life. I'm very thankful to have this opportunity to kind of share my story and the stories of others. If we're all still here, some are meant to be broken to show that even those that suffer through a hard life can still fulfill their purpose in life. And I look forward to all the talks that we're about to have here on the Broken Instruments podcast.